Imagine the roar of an engine, an endless highway stretching ahead, and absolute freedom. A person on a motorcycle races toward the horizon without ever looking back. That is how most people imagine bikers today. But where did this culture come from? Why did motorcyclists become symbols of freedom, rebellion, and independence? And how did an ordinary means of transportation evolve into an entire philosophy of life? Today, we are going on a journey through time to discover how biker culture was born, who stood at its origins, and why it remains one of the most influential subcultures in the world. The story begins at the end of the 19th century. In 1885, German engineers Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach created one of the first motorcycles powered by a gasoline engine. Of course, it looked very little like modern bikes, but it marked the first step forward. In the early 20th century, motorcycles began to be mass-produced in Europe and the United States. They were cheaper than cars, easier to maintain, and allowed people to travel quickly even on poor roads. It was during this period that the legendary brands that would later become symbols of the biker movement first appeared. A special place belongs to Harley-Davidson, founded in 1903 in a small garage in Milwaukee. At the time, no one could have imagined that a few decades later, these motorcycles would become true icons of freedom. The real biker culture was born after World War II. Millions of young Americans returned home from the front lines. For years, they had lived on the edge between life and death, flying fighter planes, driving tanks, and taking part in fierce battles. But after the war, a very different reality awaited them. A quiet life, a regular job, and family responsibilities. Many veterans struggled to adapt to peacetime life. They missed the adrenaline, the brotherhood, and the feeling of freedom. So they began buying inexpensive military motorcycles left over from the war. For many, it became a way to reclaim at least some of the emotions they had experienced during combat. Veterans started gathering together, traveling, and forming motorcycle clubs. This was the foundation of biker brotherhood. In 1947, an event occurred that many historians consider the birth of the modern biker image. The small town of Hollister, California, was hosting its annual motorcycle rally. Thousands of riders arrived. The town was unprepared for such a large influx of visitors. Drinking, fights, and chaos broke out in the streets. In reality, the scale of the disorder was greatly exaggerated by journalists. However, the American press quickly seized the story. Newspapers began portraying bikers as dangerous rebels. It was after Hollister that society started associating motorcyclists with defiance and resistance to the system. And although reality was far less dramatic, the new image had already been created. In 1953, the film The Wild One was released. The starring role was played by Marlon Brando. His character was a young motorcycle gang leader dressed in a black leather jacket. This image became iconic. There is a famous scene in which someone asks his character, "What are you rebelling against?" And he replies, "What have you got?" That line became a symbol of an entire generation. After the film's release, the black leather jacket, heavy boots, and motorcycle became symbols of freedom and defiance. Thousands of young people wanted to imitate this lifestyle. During the 1950s and 1960s, motorcycle clubs began appearing all across America. For many members, these clubs became a second family. The clubs had their own rules, symbols, and traditions. Members supported one another in difficult situations, traveled together, and protected their reputation. It was during this period that the famous patches on biker vests became widespread. Each emblem carried a special meaning. It showed which club a biker belonged to, what status they held, and the history of their brotherhood. To outsiders, it was just a piece of fabric. To bikers, it was a matter of honor. One of the most famous clubs was the Hells Angels. They quickly gained attention because of their tough reputation. The media actively covered the activities of motorcycle clubs. Movies and newspapers created the image of dangerous riders who lived by their own rules. Of course, not all bikers were criminals. In fact, most simply loved motorcycles and traveling. But the outlaw image became part of popular culture. It added a sense of romance and mystery to the movement. In the 1960s, biker culture experienced a true boom. America was changing. Young people were protesting war, old traditions, and conservative values. Bikers became symbols of independence. A motorcycle was no longer just a vehicle, it became a way of life. People set off on long journeys across the entire country. The cult of the open road was born. This was the era when the legend of freedom on two wheels truly emerged. In 1969, the cult classic film Easy Rider was released. It tells the story of two motorcyclists traveling across America in search of freedom. The movie became a cultural phenomenon. It portrayed bikers not as troublemakers, but as people striving to live life on their own terms. After that, biker culture spread around the world. Modern bikers come from all walks of life. Among them are doctors, engineers, military personnel, business owners, and students. Many motorcycle clubs engage in charity work, support veterans, and organize humanitarian initiatives. Every year, major biker festivals attract tens of thousands of participants. And although the stereotype of the tough bearded biker still exists, reality is far more diverse. Today, the core values remain the same: freedom, the open road, friendship, and a love of motorcycles. Biker culture has come a long way. From a war veteran searching for a new purpose in life to a global movement that unites millions of people. Over the decades, motorcycles, fashion, and even the clubs themselves have changed. But one thing has remained constant: the desire to break free from everyday routine, to feel the wind on your face, to hear the roar of the engine. And while a motorcycle may be just a machine to some people, for bikers it has always been a symbol of freedom. A freedom that cannot truly be explained with words. It can only be felt when an endless road lies ahead and the rest of the world disappears behind you. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us which legendary subculture or historical story you would like to hear about next.